Greetings, programs. Welcome to Red Pill Sunday School. The date is Thursday, October 3rd, 2024, if you believe in the Roman timeline. This is going to be the first to the last episode of Season 2. I suppose it should be the last one, but the next one's going to be a in-depth lesson on trusts, why it is that we've been doing so much debunking of all these people that are making unwarranted promises, and they're basically rehashing, rinse washing, and repeating the tax protest movement, which has never been successful. All the books and all the things that have been published, all the lies by tax protesters that have been published over the last 60, 70 years when this movement began, and it leaked into the truth movement and became that. And once you recognize that, you start to see the patterns. This is why I'm not part of it anymore, and why I've become, I guess, a pariah from it, because I'm exposing the fraud that is behind a lot of this stuff. Anyway, I wanted to just share this recent little show we did, just disproving and showing the fraud in yet another, what we call a guru, who's trying to sell you a bill of goods, paperwork, all these kind of things, essentially in a tax protest model. And this is just a pretext to the next show. And then once that's done, we're going to start releasing Season 3, which is going to be a very eye-opening expose on the nation state, the international law model, what the constitutions of every country and every state really are, not what you think at all. What is this international order, this so-called New World Order, New Secular Order that we're constantly talking about but really don't understand? Well, it's basic political science, but unfortunately nobody seems to be studying that. It's been demonized in ways that are very interesting, which we'll cover as well. Anyway, this is our latest expose on the latest guru to bite the dust, the latest tax protester who tells people he's not a taxpayer, tells people that he can do all this magic in court using magic words, and we're going to see that he's a giant, he's a fraud, and he's a liar, and this needs to be exposed because this is harming a lot of people. Now, I want you to understand that I used to believe a lot of this stuff. I promoted it without ever verifying it. And one of the reasons I do what I do now and have become essentially an enemy of people because I'm telling the truth and exposing fraud, obviously it's much easier to believe in the lies than it is the truth. This is unfortunately a universal curse. But I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to expose these people, and I would hope and would ask those people in these groups to share this. Because since you're not doing your own due diligence and you're falling prey, just like I did, to these tax protesters who grasp onto it and try to make money from it, you need to start sharing this with people, because once you do your due diligence, you're going to know, as we show you, all of this is wrong. It is fraud. It is a lie. And anybody who tells you they're not a taxpayer, they're a sovereign citizen, or they're a state national, all of this is a lie, guys. I've exposed the lie. I explained to you in a past Red Pill here, just a couple episodes ago, I showed Anna von Reitz admitting that she made up that term, that it doesn't exist, it's not recognized, even though she'll tell you it is. I don't know how to get through to people and say, look, this is not how things work. I'm going to show you how things really work in Season 3, and I'm also, again, going to show you in the next show to end Season 2. I'm going to show you how trusts and everything really works, why you don't want to be involved in all this UCC stuff, etc. It's just not designed for us, guys. It's for corporate whoremongers, not good people. I'd like to tell you about my new website. It's not really a new website. I designed it originally before I got ill, and really just don't have the capacity anymore to run it like I wanted to. I've made it free. It is called privateunderground.club, and it is the collection of all my work for the last 15 years. All my documentaries, all of my blog posts are in PDF form. Everything is there, all the videos, everything I could find, all my interviews, all the radio shows that I did. it's all there. Here's a couple screenshots from it. So you can see here, this is just a snapshot of the page. I'm just right under Private Underground there. You can see Welcome, Clint's Works, Forum, New Reality Blog, and the library. I haven't worked on the library yet. The blog is coming. I haven't written any new blogs yet, but I've got several drafts going, if I could just focus. The forum is something that you can read. If you want to participate, you'll have to join. The membership is free. Clint's Works is really where all my stuff is. You can see there's a Straw Man book to download, and the audio book is about the first 180 or so pages that are read for you. You have no excuse not to read at least that much. You can just listen to it and follow along, or just listen to it. Pretty handy. The reality blog is there, all the PDFs with all the comments and everything. Unfortunately, some of the files are missing, but at least the writing is there. The Corporation Nation documentaries, Corporation Nation radio show, Red Pill Sunday School radio shows. All the radio interviews I've done are archived since 2009, at least the ones I could find or that aren't paywalled. Lethal Injection documentaries are here. Wagging the Dog on COVID is there, and more importantly on biological weapons and how, you're going to see another one here pretty soon, I'm sure. World Without Gray radio show, the first radio show I tried to do, and any other little documentaries or films. It's election time. You might want to watch NODA on the Electoral College, etc. So all of that stuff is there. It's over 80-something gigs at this point. All of these files are downloadable. Just click on the download link or click on the video, etc. You know how to do that. And I'm also going to offer a thumb drive here for not very much money for those people that would like to have an archive, on a drive and not rely on the internet. There'll be a storefront here at some point. On the welcome page, you can click join us. You can join if you want. You really don't need to. There's no real benefit except that you can actually leave comments and make posts in the forum. That's just there for you guys. The only reason I'm doing that is just so I don't get a bunch of junk. And, there's donate tab. I have to pay for this website. Everything else has been censored or shadow banned. The other thing is when I put this website up, Google immediately put me on what's called their blacklist site, so that when you come to this website, it might tell you there's a danger or whatever. And in certain countries, their VPNs, I think they're called, won't allow my site to go through. So I don't know. I can't win. No matter what I do, Google is always constantly messing with me. Google's YouTube, of course. YouTube keeps taking my videos down and lying about the reasons why. There's just nothing I can do about it. So anyway, I am offering this for free. If you could donate, I'd appreciate it. Just to keep the site up. It is expensive to host your own, especially that close to 100 gigs worth of stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. Spread the word, because really, everything else is, you're lucky if you can find anything of mine anymore. Yeah, with that said, here is our latest exposure of yet another tax protest guru trying to hide behind some other title. Enjoy.
Clint Richardson and I are back, and we're here to talk about really the epitome of this whole patriot, I call it the law truther space. And Clint and I have covered KL already. We've talked about other things like status change, land patents, all that. Today we want to talk about property taxes, court procedure. In today's presentation, we're actually going to focus on this gentleman right here in the middle, Alphonse. His MO is learning Dr. Gray's course, which nothing wrong with that. But then he adds in all of these patriot mythologies that he has learned from another guru called Steve Emerson, who is a tax protester. His big thing, Alphonse, has been fighting the municipality on property taxes on real estate. So we're going to look at his case on that, and we're going to go through that together.
And let's be clear, for those that are watching that are adverse to this, that want to believe in their guru, right? We are giving you your due diligence right now because even at this moment, your whole group that's following this guy is not being informed of what's actually happening in this guy. What he says he's protesting, he's paying his taxes. He's admitting he's a taxpayer while he's telling you he's not. And the problem with that is that persons are taxpayers. The house is in his person. He cannot say I can say I'm not a taxpayer as a living, breathing man. That's fine. But if I have a house and that house is in my name, my legal name that was assigned to me at birth, which his is, then I cannot very well say that that person that house is registered to, that status of government, is not a taxpayer because lo and behold, all you have to do is read the definitions, and yes, of course, it's a taxpayer. We're going to cover that further, but you guys got to know that everything in the tax protest movement that's been going on since the 60s and being revamped and rinse, wash, and repeat, improve, rinse, wash, repeat, improve. It's it's all based on fraud. When your foundation is flawed, your superstructure will always fail. These guys are going to continue failing, and if you follow them, you will fail too, and it very well might come back at some point in the future to bite you in the butt because you followed these guys and you did something that the law clearly states you cannot. You didn't pay attention to the FBI, the IRS, and I don't understand. And let me just say this: if you know, if you hate us because we're telling you the truth, if you are one of those people talked about in the Bible, even that persecutes people for telling them the truth, then we're already in those times. We're already in a place where, because I'm telling you the truth, I'm your enemy. That is the most scary thought to me, that is the case, that I've become the enemy for telling the truth, the most revolutionary act in a time of utter deception, right? I can't believe that that's where we are now. So please, I beg you to just hear out what we're telling you, and this applies to all these faces in front of you and many more that are really coming from this tax protest movement. We're not out here to hurt these people. We're not out there to defame them. We want them and you to act correctly, honorably, with good intent. These guys don't have your best intent. And if they really were like me at one time, where I believed a lot of this stuff, way back when, before doing due diligence, if they are sincere in their belief that this is true, as I was at one time, a long time ago, then okay, we are showing you that it is not true, and you have one of two options: leave really dirty, nasty comments insulting the messenger, kill the messenger, common logical fallacy when you can't prove when your evidence is bad, the lawyer always says attack the witness or attack the messenger, right? Okay, common, very common for this type of personality. Or you do what I don't know why more people don't. I do. I always retract myself when I'm wrong. I correct myself. I don't want to be in a position where I'm harming people because I give them bad information, which again is where I was 10 years ago. I don't want to be that guy. I want to correct my errors, and I certainly don't want my errors to affect or infect all of this and the people that are following them. So please understand, we have your best interests at heart here. We are not selling you anything. We don't want you to come on over to our side. There is no side here. There is either legally correct or legally incorrect, right? There's no other argument to be made. And one last point before we go on is that you have to understand you cannot do legal things outside of the legal system. You cannot create trusts and things and, everything legal is in the legal system. The question is, are you doing it in a way that is proper? Will it actually avoid taxes? And if it does, what does that mean? But the notion of doing all this just so you can protest the tax, which is ultimately the bottom line here, that is always going to fail. Always. And yes, you are a taxpayer the second you act in person, no matter what person that is. It can be a corporation, it can be anything, right? People open corporations. Brandon's way more familiar with this than me. People open corporations so that that person is the liable taxpayer, okay? Not me. That's why you do this. You don't simply say, I'm not a taxpayer. Well, the only way that you can say I'm not a taxpayer is to appear in person and say it, because you have no voice. You have no way to communicate with government in any other way than in person. Okay, so yes, persons are taxpayers. Yeah, you can say, I can honestly say and believe that I'm not a taxpayer. But the second that I go use my name, my social, I go to a court, I do answer anything in the mail, I use any federal assistance, subsistence, protection, or mail, even, I am acting in person. That is how it is. There is no escaping that. And we've tried to explain what privacy is, which is simply not acting in that public person, which is why, these guys like the Bidens get away with such crimes because they're not acting as themselves. But you can't act as the public person and also say I'm private. That is an oxymoron. And then there's the whole, we'll talk about the sovereign and the citizen being completely opposing terms. You cannot be one thing or the other. You can't have one foot in, one foot out. It just doesn't work that way. But there is a way, a correct way to act within the legal system, and you're in it, whether you like it or not. Again, you're a conquered people. This whole citizenship thing is just a voluntary good behavior. Otherwise, it would be martial law. So we might as well make the best of it until you're going to uprise and do something about it. You might as well, act properly while you're stuck in the matrix. Why? I mean, I'm a reformed truther. That's what it boils down to. I'm a reformed tax protester. I'm a reformed because I did my due diligence, and you all need to do this too.
Very well said. Well, let's continue because, like I was saying, we're going to focus on this guy right here in the middle, Alphonse. Now, I did a full presentation on everything I'm going to present today and also these guys as well in another video. I'll link it where I post that full breakdown as well. But this was more than a few years ago. Alphonse started to be delinquent on property taxes. And you can find the case here. Here's the case number. So you read it, and the municipality, they put a lien on Alphonse's property. Here's that described. Okay. So when you see SWDCMA, that is Southwest Delaware County Municipal Authority, of course. So this started back in 2019.
Well, we'll go back for a second. Notice what it says. Against real estate owned by a person named Alfonso N. Fagiolo, right? Not a man, not some. No, you cannot own property as a man. You are either legally an owner or you are nothing at all. Period. End of story. There is no other way. So right away we know that this guy is a taxpayer because he's a person of the United States. There's no getting around this. It's never going to happen. You're never going to be able to protest, especially when you're petitioning the court as that taxpayer, as that person, and then denying it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. So it started with a lien of, let's see here, $400, but it gets much, much worse as time goes on.
With prejudice.
Back in 2021. So I did a property search, and this is a screenshot of the public database for Delaware County. And you can see the date here in the top left corner. This is more than a few months ago when I did my research on this. And this is what I saw at the time. I saw that, here's his name. I redacted a lot of information so we don't dox the guy. That's not my intention here. My intention is to not even bash Alphonse. It's to,
Right.
uh,
Again, this is
yeah,
public record. Public record. We are not here to defame
yeah,
or this is strictly the facts.
yeah, exactly. I'm not going to throw any ad hominems his way or
It's
anything like that,
it's the
right?
facts against what he tells his followers.
So we can see here property type, it says taxable residential. Okay, this is going to be important later. Homestead status, no. Okay. Owner, Alphonse. So these are all the tax years that he was delinquent on. Goes back to 2020 all the way to 2023. And again, this is from when I was looking at it a few months ago, right? Now here's the full screenshot. Now, this is what I saw, and this is what I talked about. I talked about, look, it's almost $15,000 in delinquent taxes when you combine all the years. Okay. Now look here at the bottom. It says tax sale information. So that means that this house was going to go up for auction because he was delinquent on taxes, right? So it said listed for upset sale. That just means tax lien sale, basically, right? So that's going to happen. And when I reported this, this is what it looked like at the time at 5/30/2024. And I also pulled this up on the Delaware County website, the upset sale. It was going to be on September 19th. And as is being filmed, it is what, the 25th September today. So a couple weeks ago, I went to, go check on this auction. And so this was the list of all the properties that are going on sale in that auction. And his property actually wasn't pulling up on this. And this confirmed because right before the auction happened, this confirmed to me that all of a sudden I saw that, let's see, I checked again. So this is the first screenshot I shared earlier, 5/30/2024. This is when I checked recently. And this also looked the same a couple weeks before the auction took place. It said no sales scheduled. Okay. And then delinquent taxes was also different. Let's see. I don't know if you can see that. Hold on one second. Okay. Yeah. So we went from 15,000 almost in delinquent taxes. And then all of a sudden it went down to $7,500. Okay. So that's quite a big difference. Listed for upset sale, then not listed for sale.
That's a lot of tax for a non-taxpayer. But I also want, I really like people to focus on where are these taxes actually coming from and what is the subject matter. Okay?
Yep.
Because that's what counts when you go to court. Where am I going to, who am I, which court am I going to apply to, and which one has jurisdiction, which doesn't? Well, if I have county, municipal, and city taxes, those are not federal. Uh, you don't go to a federal court for that. That is
Right.
is purely a municipal or state matter where federal laws would certainly apply and be protective of certain things, both good and bad. But I just notice where all this is coming from, and then we'll talk about the kind of case that he actually put forward.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the delinquent taxes, halved all of a sudden out of nowhere. Then his house was all of a sudden not for auction anymore. And so this is what Alphonse was saying in his Telegram group, when I came out with my Alphonse expose, a few months ago now. Let's see. So he says, he's talking about his case. This may be the first case ever that argues creatures of statute and statutory construction in a property tax suit. I'm going to file a motion for reconsideration pursuant to the local rule. It will be how the sausage is made. Document as now that he's raised tax injunction act, which we'll talk about the actual case going on here, so you guys
I have
better
a
understand
question.
it.
I just have a question. If I'm sovereign, why am I filing a motion for reconsideration? Who am I asking to reconsider here?
Right.
Why is it that I have to do that if I'm a sovereign? No, you're praying to the god of the court, which means magistrate.
And what Clinton's talking about, because in Alphonse's early days of his whole thing at the beginning was all citizens are sovereign, right? And then as the years went on, he kind of flipped on that, started describing it a little differently after he came across Steve Emerson stuff. So we'll talk about that in a second. But notice here it says, I am not a taxpayer. They have no returns and no assessments. So we'll talk about where he gets that from and why he's thinking that way. Then he says, it's idiotic. I plead and prove in my complaint that a taxpayer is a business or registered legal entity. The attorneys argue, nah, I got it all wrong. They can tax anything they want. Then every case they cite is a business and or a registered legal entity. It's maddening. Then to see him refer to the two third-party attorneys as government employees, you gotta be kidding me.
It's like saying, no, McDonald's, you can't sell milkshakes.
Right.
What?
Well,
wait.
And his whole thing, and I'll show you what he's saying in the actual case, but his whole thing is, well, the municipality, that's a private corporation.
This is the same thing that he registered his property in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same place.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're respecting it, and therefore, right? I mean, that's what everything is about, having respect for something. If you respect it, then it's true.
Right. So, okay, last picture here. Then he says again, and Steve has the most different approach, and he's talking about Steve Emerson here, has the most different approach of all. I am not a taxpayer.
The most different approach of all the liars out there is with the frauds out there, right? The ones that will be proven, if they haven't already, and they're not lying about it, will be, will suffer the same consequences as Alphonse.
Right. Okay, so let's continue. This is what his telegram sees. Oh yeah, here we go. So someone asks, Alphonse, in Crow 777, which, by the way, I've exposed that whole thing.
Don't get me started on that.
Right. Well, apparently, what, Clint, you do too much research?
I do too much research, so I can pretty much dispel his arguments, and so he didn't like me. And he said
anyways, that. Yeah, I mean, I honed in on Crow because, I mean, you can see why in my full guru breakdown of the whole law of space. But anyways, I'll give you in summary. He focuses with two gurus. He focuses on Alphonse. He's had Alphonse on his show, I don't know how many times, multiple, as well as KL. And those are like the two main gurus that he promotes on his show, right? There's a whole thing on what they're doing, what they're recommending people to do, the viewer, it's a whole mess. Alphonse is one of those gurus. That's where Alphonse got his claim to fame, right? So this person asks in his telegram, Alphonse, in Crow 777 episode, blah, 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 you say that a municipal corporation is basically a private corporation that is providing government services. Can you elaborate on how we can know the difference between a private corporation and a public corporation? What are the differences and implications of those differences? And then this is what he says. He says, municipalities are corporations that are political subdivisions of the state. Municipal authorities are private corporations that provide government services. State subdivisions are delegated taxing powers. They abuse the hell out of those delegated powers, but they are delegated the authority to tax legal entities.
But he just said they're delegated the authority. That's common. Right. I mean, that is what's called de facto or illegitimate. It's how every nation, country, everything in the world works this way. Delegation of powers. When the president gets elected, the one elected office, he appoints every other office. That is a delegation of powers. Why is that hard to understand? And why do you think that a municipality who has delegated powers, which he admits, is somehow, I mean, you could say it's illegitimate. Well, I guess my point is they know they're illegitimate. They're not trying to be legitimate. They're doing what they're supposed to do because they have to, because they accept federal funds.
Yeah. He says private corporations have no power to tax.
But they have delegated authority to tax. But that's a contradiction in terms right there. I mean,
exactly.
What kind of, who believes this stuff?
The implications have to do with taxing. And that topic is beat to death here. Been too long to put in a post. So search the group and you'll find the post after, I don't know, after posts discussing municipalities and taxes.
A very convenient answer.
Yeah,
And I mean, look, there is not one source, and that's my point.
right. Exactly. That's why he can't. Yeah. What he will point you to is Steve Emerson's tax protesting work, right? Which we'll go through later. Okay. So now we know where he's coming from. Like I said, he said they didn't have power to tax, but, here they are charging him 15 grand almost on delinquent taxes. The number magically goes down to almost half of that right before the house is going to go for auction. And then all of a sudden the house is not for auction. What's going on here?
Let's be clear, though. What is the subject matter? The subject matter is not Alphonse. The subject matter is
Right.
the titled, registered thing that they call real estate, right? This
Yep.
is a purely legal thing that doesn't actually exist, except that he registered it that way, so it became this legal thing, right? So
Yeah.
that's the subject matter. He is merely, and the taxes are applied to the person, and he is the agent that's responsible in bond and surety to that person to pay the debts of that person. All right? So he is not even the subject matter. It's the home
Right.
itself. So to argue that he's not a taxpayer, well, okay, but the home and the is where the taxes are applied to. A registered entity of the municipality and the state and the county. Why do you think you can then go to court and say I'm not a taxpayer? And I think in the court case didn't even say. I recall that he's making arguments about his own person when the subject matter isn't even. It's not him. The subject matter is the house, right?
Yes. Yeah. Because he tries to say this is a civil rights issue. And that's his.
So he's being discriminated against. Is it his sexuality? Is it his race? Is it his what is it?
Well, we'll go through that. I'll show you. But yeah, look at how this number magically almost halves in price, right? The delinquent tax bill, basically, after all the years. And then also, it's not listed for sale anymore on the tax upset sale auction.
Amazing.
So when he said in response to my video, my house is not going for auction, you're all kind of slurs. He didn't tell his Telegram group that he paid the taxes. And that's what happened recently after I made my expose video on this whole thing, right? So he knew it was going to go for auction. And to avoid that, and he'll later admit in court, I paid the taxes on another property he's delinquent on. I paid the taxes so they won't steal my house.
I mean, doesn't this kind of spell out serial fraud, serial kind of criminal behavior?
Well, there's this transcript you can find online. You just look it up by searching this. I encourage you guys to read the whole thing, by the way. Okay, so Judge goes, Gaggiolo, right. Number one, I see you've done a considerable amount of reading of law, and that's quite commendable. I wish everyone would devote themselves to understanding the law as you've tried. Not saying as you had, as you tried to understand it. So I commend you for that. Number two, you filed a motion in the federal court, and this is not the state court. You've come to federal court, and the federal court, my court, was created by a statute, and wanted the first thing we have to decide when a case is filed in our court. Okay, so he tries to take it federal after he loses the first.
So he's talking about, is this in my jurisdiction?
Right, exactly.
That is the first thing they would have to do. I mean,
Yep.
right?
It says right here, the first things we have to consider is I have what we call subject matter jurisdiction over the case. It says in the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. So let's continue.
That's great, because I mean that's what we should do. We should be accurate, and we should say, okay, should I file this case in federal court? Well, let me consult the federal rules, because I'm not going to consult a guru. I'm not going to consult someone who just has these patriotic ideas or whatever. No, I'm going to go to the actual rules of civil procedure or federal regulations or whatever you're going to go to
Right.
find out if you're in the right place, even, which obviously he's not.
Well, and this guy is all about Dr. Graves' course, court procedure, rules of civil procedure, all that. and yet he still messes up like this.
Well, now let me be clear here. Didn't you say that Graves is actually in this group?
So Graves has been active in the Telegram group even after all of this. Okay, and
Well,
what I'm about to show you, he's still active as of recently.
I mean, let
So
me let me just say this then, because I interviewed Dr. Graves.
mm,
I'll give him the courtesy and respect of calling him a doctor. Um,
sure,
and it was actually one of my probably favorite interviews because he had the sources. He told it like it is. He wasn't spouting any of this crap. He wasn't. He was just trying to teach you how to act in court. So, I mean, this is a message to Dr. Graves from me. Someone who is an avid researcher. Okay, I don't sell anything. I don't allow people even to post or sell anything on my website. I keep it all myself, right? Now, I understand you want to sell your course. Perfectly understandable. It's how you make your living. Great. But does that, I mean, there is a point where if you are selling, I mean, I've had this happen to me a lot, where my good name is used by bad people to support the bad people, and I always call it out. I've lost I've lost a lot in my little whatever you call this thing, this movement. I've lost a lot because I've called people out for not being good. Right? So I would say to Dr. Graves that you need to be way, way more careful and considerate about who you allow to be, and this affiliate marketing drives me nuts. If anybody can take your course with your approval and sell it on your behalf, saying, I'm following this guy, this is one of my mentors, and then doing this kind of stuff, there is only two options. You are either complicit or you are ignoring what you know is incorrect. Why are you in this group? Is it because you're selling product? Or do you believe this stuff? You know it's wrong. So I would just invite Dr. Graves to be, stand up against this. Be somebody, be what you say you are. Be a legitimate, you know, guy trying to teach people the correct way. But if you're going to allow people like this to misuse your name and your course in promotion of something that we all know is fraud, anybody with that does any kind of due diligence knows is fraud, well then you're the problem now. You have just become the bad guy. You've just become the guy that gives these gurus, as we call them, ammunition, and you're apparently supporting it even though I know that he knows this is crap. I'm
right,
sorry.
right,
So, and you kind of hit it on the head before when you said all these guys are collaborating. They're all supporting one another, especially
yeah,
through outlets like Crow, right? I mean, you oh my God. When I went on there years ago, I warned. I mean, I talked about the basics of private associations, and I warned there's gonna be, I don't want to, I shouldn't even talk about this publicly because
right.
there's gonna be so many people that latch onto it and and use it incorrectly because they just hear it and they automatically assume that it's okay, I can just do it. No, there's so much research and knowledge that goes behind this, and if you do it incorrectly, I mean, it's all a, when you're talking about UCC and all that stuff, if you don't file it exactly as it's supposed to be, they use it against you. And
Yep.
I guarantee nobody's doing this correctly. That's why it's reserved for these power attorneys and businesses. It's not meant for just, you don't sell your soul and you put your property into a foreign whatever. No, that's so dumb. So yeah, I just wanted to say that because I respect Graves and his course, at least from the interview that I did. So
Sure.
if he's behind this, then he's going on my list. He's the next picture that we got to put up on that list of exposing. And
I would hate to, but
I would really like to see him come out and say, I'm mistaken. I no longer have any support for these people. If he doesn't, well, after what we're showing here, then we know that he is also mixed up in this tax protest movement and
Yeah.
he needs to correct himself.
Yeah, it's I think what he's built is great. The course, I've gone through it myself. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
No Patriot mythology stuff, nothing like that,
Hmm.
right?
How to act in court.
It's just all about that. So for him to mix that brand with these tax protesters, these gurus.
I mean, that's essentially it's prostitution. You're just letting anybody. I mean, I'm sorry. You're just letting any mercenary basically sell your course and use it to justify their own actions. That's really bad.
Yeah.
Be more diligent in who you allow to sell this thing. And
Right.
I'm sorry if it's making you rich. Well, then I guess money is the root of all evil.
Because yeah, Alphonse is probably, if I had to guess, right? This is just my guess. But if I had to guess, I bet he is probably the biggest affiliate of Dr. Gray's course, besides maybe Crow or somebody else.
Mhm.
So
Start fitting those pieces together, and you start seeing a corrupt mind. So I invite Dr. Graves, because I do respect him, to come out and say,
yeah,
"Look, I'm not part of this. I've made a mistake by letting these people sell my product, use my good name for their bad products.
exactly.
That's all."
Okay, so let's continue reading this transcript. So look at this at the top. The judge says, "So I heard counsel say that the payment of the tax is current. Somebody has paid the tax." So what they're talking about here in this transcript is they're talking about another property that was in Alphonse's parents. It was his parents' house. His dad passed away, and then the house was left for him, right? So now today I checked, Alphonse is the title owner, him and his wife on that property. I won't say the address on here. So he's got two properties in this Delaware County, Pennsylvania. So in this particular transcript, they're talking about the other one, not the one I showed you earlier on the website screenshots. So this old one, he paid the taxes on the property taxes, while at the same time trying to fight about his other property, not paying taxes on that one, right? So that's what the judge is referring to in here. So Alphonse says, "Sir, they're paid for one reason, because if you don't pay it, they will sell your property without a day in court, without any due process whatsoever. They will literally steal your property. So the taxes are paid out of threats." uh, so he continues. He has a long description here. "When these people are collecting money that they're not entitled to collect, that's called theft under Pennsylvania 3921B, theft of immovable property." When they're doing it by threats, hey, either pay this tax or we're going to sell your property. That's called extortion. And when you're using the USPS to do it, which they do repeatedly, that's called mail fraud under Title 18, 1341. Yeah, I remember hearing that mail fraud thing from, what's his name?
Another
David Wynn Miller.
tax protest. Yeah.
Wow. The quantum grammar guy.
Well, I mean, it's all
It's all the same, though.
It's all geared. It's all based on that foundation. Now,
Right.
what's important here is that he's just defined the term, right? Money that they're not entitled to is not extortion. It's called exaction, actually.
And this brings up this point here.
So this is an email I sent to Brandon because I was reading through this case and he says it's extortion, which is something I've said in the past. And in a way, it is true. It is extortion, but it's actually defined as exaction, which is legally and federally protected behavior, right? So if you went to court and argued that it's exaction or extortion, I mean, all I'd have to do is point you to your civil rights code, which is Title 42, 1981. I've read this so many times. I wanted to make a T-shirt out of it. Equal rights under the law. It is your right to be exacted. Okay, there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Punished, put in pain, taxed, licensed, and exacted. Those are rights as a citizen, right? So obviously, that in itself says I am not a sovereign because they're assigning rights to me. But let's read what exaction actually means. Exaction means an excessive or harsh demand of a reward or fee for an official service performed in the normal course of duty. Okay? Okay. It sounds like extortion. Exaction is taking more fee or pay for the services than what the law allows under color of one's office. The act of exacting money or the sum exacted is also called an exaction. This counts for everything. When you say, how can they force me to buy insurance? How can they do all of that? That's an exaction. And it's your right to be exacted as a person of the United States. The difference between extortion and exaction is I mean, when you look up exaction, it says extortion. Okay? The only difference, under extortion, the officer extorts more than his due. When something is actually due, under exaction, he exacts what is not due when there is nothing due to him. Now, I mean, extortion would be a good thing compared to exaction, but the problem is, as I wrote here, exaction includes extortion, because if I could just take from you anything, anytime, when nothing is due to me, and that is a protected right of people to have exaction against them, well, then why do I even need extortion? I could just take what's not due to me at any time, whether you already owe something or not. So any fees, anything that's put upon you is an exaction, and it may be an extortion as well, but extortion is covered under exaction. Exaction is actually much worse because you're taking what is not due. Now, your whole argument that this is extortion, I'm sorry, but anybody who makes that argument, they're going to be very disappointed, because again, you're not understanding that rights are not a good thing. They are forced
Right.
upon you. Protection, right? With protection comes subjection. You don't have a choice about it. You acting in person means the person can be exacted from. You're the agent that's been bought and sure to pay everything for that person. If you don't, because you're acting in a what they consider, and I'm not supporting them. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm just telling you how it works, right? Don't shoot the frickin' messenger.
Right.
Just understand that if you argue this, right, that they're all they'd have to really do. They don't want to do this, because if people understood this, there'd be a frickin' revolution, right? Or you'd think. But
Mm.
it is your right to be extorted and exacted. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, because you are a federal citizen. Okay? And you are residing in the city, the county, the state, and yet your law is always going to be trumped by federal law because you're a federal citizen. You're not a domicile in the state, you're not the people, you're not an American, you're a US citizen, which in Rome, I've said this before, when Rome conquered a country, they would make citizens of who they conquered.
Mm.
That's what happened to us. I don't understand why this is not clear, but okay. So, yeah, I just want to make sure that by saying it's extortion, that's like stating the obvious. If you
Right.
say that to a judge who already knows their court is illegitimate, who already knows, because that's what de facto means. It's not illegal, right? The problem with the whole truth movement, and I'll just finish with this. The problem with the truth movement, the patriot movement, the tax protest movement, is that everything that you're against is already been made legal. You cannot fight against. This is why I gave up on the CAFR battle, because I can expose all the money the government has, but nothing they're doing is actually illegal. It's complete extortion. It's complete exaction. They charge you for one thing and then they put it towards their pension funds. They do all kinds of bad things, and yet they're required to even be a municipality that takes federal funds. They are required to exact and extort from you. They wouldn't be there if they didn't. The only way that you could possibly get out of this is to have a private municipal thing that isn't taking federal funds. That's the only way you could, but anybody that's ever tried that has failed, because if you're private, guess what? You can't deal with other cities, counties, and states, and you can't get federal funding. You can't get all these different tax exemptions. You can't survive. That would require an actual people who are together and actually supporting one another charitably, not trying to extort each other, which is what we do on a daily basis. It's what's
Yeah.
you know, it's charging a fee for something. So I'm sorry, but extortion and exaction are perfectly legal. You need to accept that because this is a prison. you don't have you don't have God-given rights. You don't have inherent rights. You're not sovereign. I mean, I, I this is. I can only say this. I feel so much better now knowing this. I
Right.
really do because now I'm not fighting against something that I can't win. You know,
Yeah.
I get it now. So the best thing that we can do is learn how to operate in the system. Like I said, until someone's gonna overthrow this thing,
Yeah.
which is not gonna be me, it's probably not gonna be you, it's probably not gonna be Alphonse. Well, then doesn't it make sense that we should start operating within the correct methods, not trying to do something that is completely illegal? You can use their law against them. It is possible, not against them, but to suppress their bad behavior. But there's no winning in court. You're a
Mm,
slave. You don't win. You might
right.
get money. You might get some judgment, but that's not a win. That's just a house slave getting an extra morsel.
Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely true. So let's go back to the transcript. Yeah. So he says that's called extortion. Blah blah blah. These people are committing crimes. This is a crime spree going on in Delaware County right now. They can't explain how they're taking non-commercial property, which, by the way, that we'll go through that, but that's not the issue there. And putting it on a commercial ad valorem. I'm probably pronouncing valorem. Yeah,
It's an
valorem
old
tax roll,
Latin term.
which we'll talk about that. That he completely. Anyways, what is he taxing? What what are his clients taxing? That's how the tax code is written, sir. I'm not making it up. This is the revenue code. Title 61, 153.1A and 155.1A. And in Title 61 code, he'll say it's commercial. That's what taxes are. They're commercial. There's a section 5 in Title 61. That's a personal income tax also. They're also entities apart from personal income tax. They're required to file a tax return. It's not an option to require to file tax return. They have no tax return from me. So when you're paying a personal income tax, you're exercising a privilege in a taxing district. That's exactly what a property tax is. You're using the property to conduct a business privilege. So if there's no
That's
business
not
privilege
even
is
that's not
going
even
on in
true.
the property, which my property, there are no business privileges. There's eating, sleeping, and drinking going on there, and you can't tax that. So he can't complain how he's taken my non-commercial property and putting it on his commercial tax roll. So he thinks this is a big mic drop right here, right? Like, oh, got him.
Well, I mean, the only thing I need to say here is that persons are commercial entities. There is nothing in the United
Exactly.
States that isn't commercial. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
understand. And you registered in that person. So,
Yeah.
and he's appearing as that person.
Pay the court fees and all that. Yeah. The filing fees. Okay.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're
So
appearing
this is
as a
where he's coming
taxpayer.
from, guys.
Okay.
And where does he get this stuff from? The ad valorem stuff, the commercial property. I'm not commercial, blah, blah, blah. Well, he's getting that from Steve Everson. Okay.
The one thing I will comment on there, though, he's believing that the district actually has all the power. The district has a delegated power to do these things, but when it comes to collections of property tax, when it comes to that goes back to government. It's not the
Yeah.
district. It's
Right.
they're just there. There can be you could be in 100 districts, 200 districts at the same time. We
Yeah.
talked about the federal trade zone being a district of 40 miles around, right? You can be in it or not in it. It just depends on what you're doing. Well, you're obviously in the district because you've registered your house. They were delegated the power on behalf because you got to think it's just like Congress. Why did they create the Federal Reserve? Why did they create the post office? Why did they create all these different agencies and put it under executive authority? Well, executive means war emergency powers for one, to execute something, and then two, you do you think Congress has time to sort the mail? You think Congress has, do you think a municipality has time to go through all the, no, they create these districts. And again, I'm not in support of them. I hate these freaking, I exposed
Right.
them for the frauds that they are, but they're legal.
Yeah.
And that's the point. I think that you're fighting against something on a spiritual, in a spiritual place or a patriotic place that has no place in the legal realm, because
Mm,
legal is opposed to spiritual. Positive law is anti-negative law, or the law of, there is no way that you can mix the secular and the spiritual, or the secular and the patriotic, or any of these things. It just, you can't. They're
right.
legal is designed to get rid of all that good stuff, all your good rights, all your inherent rights. I just don't know why that's not clear.
All right. So let's continue. Um, so I talked about Steve Emerson. This is a essay that he wrote. Um, you can find this essay by just going a friend of the show's blog. I am has sent me to you .substack.com. I used the friend of the show's blog because he talked about the same stuff we're covering a lot in my full breakdown video. So I highly encourage you guys to visit that blog as well. But anyways, you
I
can
mean,
find this on Scribd.
if you're starting this out with in England in the mid 1600s, you're definitely, and you're applying that to now. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, anything
So
pre-Civil War is out the
right,
window.
yeah. So anyways, he says the document analyzes and annotates in green. So that's the front of the show's text in green. A 28-page essay on property taxes by Steve Emerson. It finds that Emerson makes up case quotations and omits key language to give a false meaning to everything said in here. So I'll show you guys what front of the show is talking about. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, the England thing. Because in early America, we didn't have a title system in place, right? There was no fee simple. There was nothing like that.
But if you did have that, all you have to do with this case that's quoted, it says the king was the true and complete holder. Just replace that with the state.
Right.
I mean, that's all that
Yeah.
changed. They just went from a king to a president. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not really that much different. And states have limited sovereignties granted by the king, the president, the United States, but they aren't even recognized as states internationally because a state would be completely sovereign. That's why there's
Right.
only nation states. So, I mean, again, this is still true. If you do have an allodial, not allodial, but a fee simple type of title, right? The state still holds the allodial. That no one can hold the
Mhm.
allodial title except the state. Now it can give you the privilege, the the holdership of it, but it's always going to be state territory. It's always going to be United States territory
Yeah.
in the true sense of the word. So I mean, come on.
Yeah. And Clint and I, we've talked about allodial titles a lot. Like he said, that once we switch the property ownership system in the states, so we went from the king to the state. Um, the only way that the only way that the someone can hold the allodial title is because the federal government had that, and then we switched to the title system, right? So it's not possible for us to retroactively go back and claim allodial title that we never had.
You know, my great 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 grandfather owned this property, and therefore I own it. You know, no, I mean
Right.
it was conquered. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you talked about that with the Louisiana Purchase, all that kind of
Well,
stuff.
and you
So,
know what? I just refer to people to the last chapter of my book because I talk all
mm,
about this fallacy about allodial title.
yep. Okay. And this is where Steve Emerson is rooted in. He's talking about allodium. So yeah, the American people, before developing a properly functioning, stable government, developed a stable system of land ownership where the people own their land absolutely in a manner similar to the king in common law England, as allodium, which means or is defined as a man's own land which he possesses merely in his own rights, without owing any rent or service to any superior. Wallace versus Harmstead.
Okay, we're right there. The people, right, American people, which don't exist anymore, before developing a properly functioning, stable government, developed a stable system of land ownership. Okay, that was between me and you, and this required a spiritual nation
Mm,
of people, a compact between people that said, okay, I respect your ownership. This had nothing to
yeah.
do with the registration process that Alphonse is suffering from. This has nothing to do with
Yeah.
allodium, all right?
Right.
And it, I mean, it didn't even say, yeah. So before developing a government, well,
Right.
the you can't go by this 1863. I mean, they're not even talking about it. They're not even talking about 1863 here. They're talking about way back in the 1600s.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so let's pull up this case, Wallace versus Harmstead.
1863.
Yeah. One quote we do see in the opinion, however, is I see no way of solving this question except by determining whether our Pennsylvania titles are allodial or feudal. It seems strange that so fundamental a question as this should be in doubt at this day, but it has never had, so far as I know, a direct judicial decision. Invaluable note by Judge Sharswood to the opening passage of Blackstone's chapter on modern English tenures. Okay, and says that there are no opinions that feudal tenures fell with the American Revolution, yet all agree that they existed before. And the better opinion appears to be that they still exist. Okay, so the better opinion is that the feudal tenures still exist. This contradicts the made up statement Emerson uses in his document. To confirm, take a look at the warranty deed conveying your property to you. Does it say the land is conveyed in fee simple or allodium? If it doesn't say anything, go check your state's statutes because this is what was found in Utah. And these codes are uniforms. They're going to find in your state, I guarantee, where it says grant of fee simple presumed. Okay. We're talking about real estate. So Steve Emerson continues in the black text. He says, the American people newly established sovereigns in this republic, after the victory achieved during the Revolutionary War, became complete owners in their land, beholden to no lord superior, as sovereign freeholders in the land themselves. These freeholders in the original 13 states now held the Lodio, the land they possessed before the war, only feudally. This new and more powerful title protected the sovereigns from unwarranted intrusions or attempted takings of their land. And more importantly, it secured in them a right to own land absolutely in perpetuity. Chisholm versus Jordan. Okay. So you pull up the leading fighter versus County of Gregory case here that's quoted. Don't take my word for it. Click the link and do a text search with Control F for perpetuity, since Steve highlighted that word in text in red. Did you find it? Neither did I. That's red flag number 2.
So, wait a minute. The American people newly established sovereigns in this republic. Well, a commonwealth, okay, no. American people, well, you know, I've got a blog I haven't released yet that shows that not, I don't know what this percentage, but it's very high. Most of the people that came here were either slaves or indentured servants. So they weren't the American people. They were American people was the bloodline that came over here and established all these commercial entities, right? They're the slaveholders, right? Most
Right.
people that came over here were either slaves or indentured to these people. So this is all essentially bullshit.
Yeah.
And it refers to a time that was pre-government, pre-federal,
Right.
basically.
Yeah. Like you said, I mean, most of us are what descendants of immigrants to the United States. So yeah, I mean, we're not in that bloodline, people.
Well, this is also a key factor in the Patriot mythology is this kind of reference to things that were existed before and why why were they so against the federal government in the papers that they wrote, right, the Federalist
Yeah.
Papers and stuff. Well, okay, these all these opinions and all these things that were happening were before not only before the Constitution, which just, like I said, every country had a republic, and every country then got a constitution, which created a nation state, the federal, and then the states were no longer sovereign. So, and it wasn't the people that were sovereign. When we say people, I mean, there was a debate when they were signing the Constitution. Do we say the states or do we say the people? Because they mean the same damn thing. It's not that the people are individually sovereign, it's the people as a group that's called a state, which is why internationally states are recognized as sovereign, which is why California, New York, England, Scotland are not recognized as states. They
Mm.
might as well call each state at this point a province, because just like
Yeah.
in Canada, because there is no actual sovereignty. It is a limited, assigned sovereignty over certain things. Now they have abortion to add to it, right? So, but that's
Right.
not sovereignty, and people were
No.
never sovereign. They say that, but just like allodial titles always held in the state, the people is the state. And by the way, the plural of person is persons, not people. You're not the people if you're a person.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well said. Okay. So this continues. So now Steve Everson pulls up a Florida state constitution article. There shall be exempt from taxation, cumulatively, to every head of family residing in the state, household goods and personal effects to the value fixed by general law. Okay. So, of course, stuff in my house is not going to be taxed. So that's what household goods is talking about, right? Exception of household goods and personal effects, there shall be exempt from taxation to every person residing and making his or her permanent home in the state, household goods and personal effects. Title to such household goods and personal effects may be held individually. Okay, so it goes on. So this has nothing to do with actual real estate, right?
Right. And it's no two different things.
Um, and and this is what Alphonse was talking about. He's like, look, there's no commercial activity going on my property. I'm sleeping, I'm drinking, I'm eating.
Obviously
Creature
drinking.
comforts.
Drinking.
And he didn't remember to say creature comforts, right? Because that's the anyways, are things which give bodily comfort, such as food, clothing. That's why he listed those things, right? Commercial purposes
Uh,
include owning household goods and personal effects as stock and trade or as furnishings and rental dwelling. Okay, blah, blah, blah. The Florida State Constitution, Article 7, Section 6A. Every person who has a legal or equitable title to real estate, which, Clint, we've talked about equity before. That whole thing is blown out of proportion by this whole movement, right? They've really the legal system has really perverted what equity is. Anyways, we've already talked about that. It maintains thereon the permanent residence of the owner shall be exempt from taxation thereon. Okay, so look, this sounds great to the untrained eye, right? He's trying to say, look, I have permanent residence that's exempt from taxation because of these things, right? These Florida codes. Steve uses the definitions from Black's to draw the following conclusion. As stated above, household goods and personal effects are defined technically as things which give bodily comfort, such as shelter, and that the title to such household goods and personal effects, house and the land it sits upon, used solely for the creature comforts of the taxpayer owner, is not devoted to some business or commercial purposes.
wait a minute. Who added house and the land it sits upon?
He did.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's not original. See, this is what I
Right.
hate when they quote things and then they don't mention here that I'm adding this to it, you know?
Yeah. Oh, and friend of the show points that out. He says, if you didn't know, jumping from the statute to Black's law dictionary to determine the meaning is a common mistake for a beginner. The courts have a very specific way they interpret statutes, and it's best explained by the court and not me. Here it goes. Quote, the starting point in any endeavor to construe a statute is always the words of the statute itself, unless government, the legislator, has clearly indicated that its intentions are contrary to the words that's employed in the statute. This is the ending point of interpretation.
Okay, let me. I pulled this up because I knew this was going to come up. Okay, let me just. This is getting out of my book. Download it for free. Okay, We are under a constitution, but the constitution is what the judge says it is. And the
Mm.
judiciary is the safeguard of our liberty and of our property under the constitution. That is Charles Evans Hughes, 11th Chief Justice of the United States. James Bryce, Chief Secretary for Ireland. We have seen that the American Constitution has changed, is changing, and by the law of its existence must continue to change in its substance and practical working, even when its words remain the same. In other words, the judge is interpreting it, not you. It is John Marshall, 4th Chief Justice, Supreme Court. It is emphatically the province and duty of the judicial department to say what the law is, not you. Those who apply the rule to particular cases must of necessity expound and interpret that rule. If two laws conflict with each other, the courts must decide on the operation of each. It is emphatically the providence and duty of the judicial department to say what the law is. If two laws conflict, the courts must decide on the operation of each. So if a law be in opposition to the Constitution, the court must determine which of these conflicting rules governs the case. This is of the very essence of judicial duty. What does that say? It says if a law is in opposition to the Constitution, the court decides which one actually governs. Well, in the case of a person of the United States, the Constitution doesn't apply because the Constitution only protects God-given inherent rights. It doesn't protect rights that you've accepted as a person, which are legal rights. They are positive, not negative. Hugo Black, Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. Presidents and Black, you know Black. Presidents come and go, but the Supreme Court goes on forever. No higher duty. That was actually William Howard Taft. No higher duty or more solemn responsibility rests upon this court than that of translating into living law and maintaining this constitutional shield for the benefit of every human being subject to our Constitution, of whatever race, creed, or persuasion. They're telling you over and over the Constitution and all laws, they only are applied and defined by the courts, no one else. Now, you can go to Black's Law and you can find the good thing about Black's Law is the historical aspect of it. In other words,
Yeah.
it does go over the history of these things, where they come from, and how they've, that way you can figure out how they came to be. But you can't argue that the old interpretation applies to a new situation where a new court has already set precedent, and precedent is common law, right? So the words of the Constitution are so unrestricted by their intrinsic meaning or by their history or by tradition or by prior decisions that they leave the individual justice free, if indeed they do not compel him to gather meaning not from reading the Constitution, but from reading life. That's Felix Frankfurter, Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. I can go on and on and on. The life of law has not been logic, it has been experience. The law embodies the story of the nation's development. Well, it became a nation state. The Constitution freaking suspended. Is suspended. Constitution, on this hypothesis, is a mere thing of wax in the hands of the judiciary, which they may twist and shape into any form they please. That was Thomas Jefferson, for God's sake. Okay? Now, I don't know why you would believe Alphonse, whatever his name is, or any of these gurus, when you have quotes from the very people who interpret the law in the highest degree, the presidents, the Supreme Court justices, and their associates. I don't know why people insist on listening to these people when it is so in your face. If you just do a little bit of research. And I got to tell you this too. I mean, people used to send me these court cases and these quotes from courts.
Yeah.
And they're always, in every case, taken out of context. And half the time, you'll find a quote like this, where this guy put those terms in parentheses or added something to it. And, then they say it's the original quote. And then you go and you quote it, and you look like a fool, either in court or, in my case, on the radio, because... damn, I went to verify it, which I should have in the first place, and turns out that's not what this case was about. It's completely out of context, or it's a false quote. A lot of the quotes about the Federal Reserve are completely made up.
Absolutely right. And the guru we've covered before, KL, we've caught him doing exactly that.
There you go.
What Steve Emerson's doing here. Okay. It's a common pattern. Okay, with this in mind, and because Steve is attempting to argue that your house and the land it sits on are household goods and personal effects, let's check the definitions for household goods and personal effects provided by the Florida legislator. Okay, so definitions: personal property for the purposes of ad valorem taxation shall be divided into four categories as follows. Household goods means wearing apparel, furniture, appliances, and other items ordinarily found in the home. Okay, do I really have to read the rest of that? Intangible personal property means money. All evidences of debt owed to the taxpayer, all evidence of ownership in a corporation or other business organization having multiple owners, and all other forms of property where values based upon. Okay,
Well,
real property.
that's a great definition of what you're trying to get people to understand
Yeah,
can be protected if you put it somewhere else than your, this is why you want asset protection
yeah,
because otherwise it can be used as it's taxable and it can be used as a for creditors, collectors, I should say, can come after it. But if
absolutely.
you don't have it in your name, they can't come after it.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot you can do with asset protection using these entities that these gurus will tell you not to use,
Oh
right?
well, they'll tell you, hey, claim it as yours. Claim it as
Oh,
and
right,
when the other confusion here is personal. That doesn't mean you. That means
right,
person. It's on your
exactly.
person, not you.
Yeah, it's a good point there. Real property. Okay, this is important. Real property means land, buildings, fixtures, and all other improvements to land. The terms land, real estate, realty, and real property may be used interchangeably. Okay. Taxable value means the assessed value of property, which I showed you on the county website. We saw that. The amount of any applicable exemption provided under, okay, section of this Constitution. All right. So you guys getting the idea here? I hope so. Now, remember, Steve and Alphonse both talk about ad valorem tax, right? So this is Black's Law, sixth edition definition. According to value, a tax levied on property or an article of commerce in proportion to its value as determined by assessment or appraisal. Okay.
Question: does he think that when he purchased the house, that wasn't a commercial transaction?
I wish the judge asked that, to be honest.
I mean,
Yeah. I mean, these are the mental gymnastics that you got to think through,
well,
right?
it's also funny because then you have the other side that says we are creditors in commerce.
Mm.
Well, okay, so you're now at least they're saying everything is commerce, so let's be creditors instead of debtors. But I mean,
Oh, right.
that's obviously a foolish thing to do. But the point is, one side at least admits that it's all commerce, that persons are commercial.
Yeah, it's true. Here's the exact definition as it appears in Black's Law, talking about ad valorem, right? Sixth edition. Like he said, it's different than what he said right here, right? According to value, a tax imposed on the value of property. The more common ad valorem tax is that imposed by states, counties, and cities on real estate. Ad valorem taxes can, however, be imposed upon personal property. A motor vehicle tax may be imposed upon the value of an automobile and is therefore deductible as a tax. A tax levied on property or an article of commerce in proportion to its value as determined by assessment or appraisal.
Well, that leaves one thing: is it commercial? I mean, just because you say residential,
Yeah.
does that mean residential is outside of commerce? No, because all
No.
laws are commercial.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, when you get down to it.
Duties are either ad valorem or specific. The former, when the duty is laid in the form of a percentage on the value of the property, which county assessments are, right? The latter, where it is imposed as a fixed sum on each article of a class without regards to its value. Okay.
So they're an ad valorem tax is either according to the value, right? So when the county or the city or whoever comes in and says, well, according to the market, your property value has gone up, and therefore we're going to charge you more tax because the
Yep.
property value is higher. Therefore, ad valorem, we're going to tax you according to the fictional value. Now, when it goes down, they don't come back and say, "Oh, well, shoot, we got to correct our, the market value has gone down." Therefore, that's why
Right.
you don't. That's why you don't base things on the market value.
No, it's when
You
real estate,
shouldn't.
yeah,
You
that's
shouldn't.
Steve's definition from Beauvair's is accurate and supports his contention that ad valorem tax is a tax on commercial use only. But we are looking for a legal argument that will be upheld in the courts. So cherry picking definitions is just not going to work. We need to get to the real meaning of the terms. And in general, the courts follow definitions in Black's as authoritative. Furthermore, the editor of Black's Law Dictionary has stated that their definitions reflect the meaning of the terms as used by the courts and legislator.
At the time.
Right.
Right?
Right. As time goes on, yeah.
and often it's a historical view. Also, Black's technically is used as a secondary, not a primary source, but a secondary source. It is accepted, definitely,
Mhm.
but generally it is used to as a historical purview. You can use that are accepted or acceptable.
Pulling up the case cited from the definition in Black's definition, Callaway versus City of Overland Park, we find that the court differentiates an ad valorem tax from an excise tax as so. An ad valorem tax is a tax imposed on the basis of the value of the article or thing taxed. An excise tax is a tax imposed on the performance of an act. The engaging in occupation or the enjoyment of a privilege.
Oh, now how many times have I said that citizenship is not a monetary debt, it is a performance debt. That means you have to perform as a contractual situation, whatever the laws they're putting on you, right? Or the taxes or the
but
fees.
but Clint, I didn't sign a contract. I didn't agree. Well, that's not what
Oh.
we're talking about, guys.
Yeah, I mean, every time you use the person, you are agreeing.
Right.
Use is the highest form of consent.
Absolutely. And I pulled up the law on that in my full presentation on everything they're talking about here. So I'm not going to repeat myself too much. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That's an implied contract. Although we would like to believe that ad valorem tax is only imposed on commercial activity, this is our way out of property taxes, I think you would be hard pressed to get a judge to
Mm.
agree with you.
Well, and especially considering that's the judge's bread and butter is to agree with every other judge. I mean, that's
Right.
precedent, right?
Exactly.
This would establish a precedent if they and it would probably be turned down by every other court
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
because you're not the only one that can get an appeal. I mean, if they rule against the city, they can appeal too.
Yeah. Yeah. So remember earlier how Alphonse was like, there are no returns of mine as a taxpayer, blah, blah, blah. Well, he got that from Steve Emerson, just like everything else. In his interview, Steve states that a return is required to be filed by the taxpayer before property tax can be assessed. Wait, hold on here. So you're telling me if I own real estate and I get notices of my tax bill in the mail, what is that then, right? And that's what the judge asks in this case, actually, if you read that transcript I showed earlier. Okay, so let's continue. Steve tells us to go find the statute for our state, then make a records request to the county requesting a copy of all of the returns that you made on the property. When they respond that they have no records responsive to your request, you've got to buy the tail.
Oh yes. Oh boy, yeah.
Got him.
That is a classic sign that you're dealing with somebody who is defrauding you.
Yep.
That is not how law works in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And this is what Alphonse repeats.
What they all promote. If they don't respond, then you win.
He says there are no records of filings. And I'll show you how he repeats that in his appeal to this case. After trying to use that same point over and over, it doesn't work. He's still using it. Anyways. Now, you can prove they are depriving you of your substantive rights without due process and you're ready to get on writing a 42 USC subsection 1983 complaint to take the county and state for all the property tax they illegally extracted from you, plus trouble damages and permanent removal from the tax roll. Jeez, who would want that, right?
So 42 section U.S. Code 1983. I just read you 1981
Right, right,
that says you have the right to be extorted,
right.
exacted. So you're taking this completely out of context.
Yeah. And 42 USC, because Steve tells you use this as a cause of action in your lawsuit when you sue the county. That is not a proper cause of action, folks. That's just not going to work for this. For this kind of case, this is a tax case, right? Okay. So 72 PA statute subsection 4843.1 is a Pennsylvania statute that Alphonse found where a return by the taxpayer is required. We find that this statute is under a chapter titled Tax on Credits, Loans, Monies, etc., for county and city purposes and their assessment. Oh. And there is another chapter titled Real Estate and Personal Property. Starting to see the problem here? So here's our screenshots of these, okay? Tax on credits, loans, monies, county assessments, blah, blah, blah. Subject and rates of county taxation in general. These are the Pennsylvania ones where Alphonse resides.
Would it not be a true statement? I mean, I haven't really ever thought about it in this way, but I mean, if you have a lien against your property because you have a loan, I mean, you've already given up your ownership essentially until that lien is, or until that debt is satisfied. They actually have, I mean, this is what UCC and everything is all about, is putting yourself in the first position to collect that which collateralizes the debt. So how, I mean,
Right.
you're gonna get a loan to buy a house that you register
Oh,
in
buy.
person and then say I am not a taxpayer nor a debtor nor I mean I don't understand the logic here.
Right.
But I mean, this is how this tax protest movement works. It's like ignore
Yeah.
all your obligations, ignore that you did it. Now, again, we're not here to support the legal system, to support the way it is. We're just
No,
telling you the way it is. And if
exactly.
you deny all of the things we're telling you and listen to these people, I mean, I can only call you a fool. That's what the Bible would call you. Or as Jesus said, you're a dumb ass.
Yeah. No. And I did look in the records, county records, and it looks like back in the day, Alphonse did have a mortgage on this. Now he has all the equity now that the mortgage is paid off. But yeah, you're exactly right. When you have a mortgage on your property, that lender, they're the lien holder
A
on that
dead
property, right?
pledge. Mort Gage, dead pledge. It's in dead
Yeah.
hands.
So I'm so sick of people saying, I just bought a house. You know, people my age, I just bought a house on Facebook. Like, look, you didn't buy a house, you're renting from the bank. And then when you pay off your mortgage, you're still renting from the
Well,
municipality.
the funny part about this is you're going to be way more you're going to be way more free, even though you're still in the system. If you don't have
Right.
any property, get rid of
Exactly.
it all, and you're going to actually enjoy life a lot more than trying to fight this. I mean,
Yeah.
own property and own. I mean, the only way you can own anything is if there's some sovereign entity that recognizes your ownership and that you acknowledge that it actually owns it and it's giving you the beneficial right. It owns your children because you did the birth certificate and gives you the beneficial right to raise those children according to its rules, but it will take that child if you don't. I mean, it's going to take
Yep.
your house if you don't. It's going to take your
Yep.
car if you don't. Why is this hard to understand and why are you fighting it when you've already agreed to it?
Exactly.
And I am, but I'm going to caveat again.
Uh,
I used to believe all of this stuff
sure.
until I did my due diligence.
I mean, luckily, I never got sucked into this stuff.
You
But
are lucky because
oh,
it's very disappointing to find out one, you're
yeah.
wrong,
Right.
it's wrong, and two, you supported it and maybe convinced people to follow it because it's a harsh reality. It's a bad feeling.
Yeah. And look, I know a lot of you guys, thought Alphonse was the most grounded out of all the groups.
Well, he's from what I've heard. I haven't actually listened to him, but because I only look at documents. But I've heard that he's kind of like George Bush Jr. when he was a governor and a brilliant orator, right?
He
He's an
is.
orator, right? He actually
Yeah.
sounds, and that's the important part.
Yeah.
That's how these guys sell themselves. If they can't talk good, well then
Right.
they ain't gonna be very effective, are they?
Well, yeah, people don't want to listen to me because I'm monotone. I pull up documents,
Oh, you're a young looking
Oh,
half Asian twit. So I shouldn't listen to you, even
yeah.
though Asians are typically the smartest freaking people in the room.
Well,
Okay, fine.
yeah.
You go white then, right? Or go, what is he, Italian? I don't know. So
Oh, yeah,
go.
yeah.
Let's not be racist here, right?
Well,
Civil rights, but
oh,
yeah, yeah. It's
well,
just
I think now I'm going to file a 42 USC civil rights case. I'm feeling
you.
discriminated.
You should do it against me because I just called you a half Asian twit.
How dare you? How dare you do that? I am Asian American.
But
Okay.
sir, he calls himself that.
Well, that's the funny thing. People assume I'm 15 years old. They assume I'm 100% white because of how I look and
God, I wish people assumed that about me, but look at me. I mean, Jesus.
look, I don't have to explain myself to anybody. Like my whole life I've excelled because people made the wrong assumptions about
Oh,
me.
absolutely. That is very, very, very true. Underestimate your friend or your enemy, and you're going to be in trouble.
Jumping back to the definitions for this chapter. Tangible personal property includes every tangible thing being in the subject of ownership or part ownership, whether animate or inanimate, other than money and not forming part or parcel of real property as herein defined, but does not include household goods, furniture, wear and apparel, and articles of personal use, and adornment, as defined by the state tax commission, owned and used by a person in his home or dwelling place, right?
Oh, but doesn't Alphonse define it? Oh no, I'm
Oh,
sorry. It's the state capital tax commission.
right.
Oh, okay. Oh, but no, let's go by his definition.
Yeah, let's go by Steve's fiction.
Yeah.
I'm not going to include the definition of real property because of its length, but feel free to check it out and confirm that the return is not for your real property.
Mm.
This is just two states, but you're more than likely to find the same in others. The argument fails. Yeah, these codes
And
are uniform.
that's a good point because yeah, you do have uniform law, but still each state has different things. When we found that out
Mm-hmm.
about the trusts, we find that out about
Yep.
everything. So you do need to go according to the state you're going to be operating in.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when we're talking about real estate.
Well, especially if you want to be private from the United States, well, then you better be following state law, and
Yeah,
according to whether it's a federally protected thing or not.
right. Like most people think, because they heard from some trust guru, oh, I can set up an irrevocable trust, which people say I say that wrong, which no, that is the, anyways.
Well, that's because you're a stupid young,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
15-year-old.
Right. So they hear from a guru, I can set up an irrevocable trust, and I, the grantor, the settlor, the person putting things in the trust, can also be the trustee. And I guarantee most states you're going to
Well,
look, and that does
imagine.
not.
Well, imagine if that was true. How
Right.
I mean, the corruption that would come from that would
Yeah.
be. I mean, that's almost like an anarchic situation, really.
Yeah.
That becomes yeah,
Well,
because who would sue? Like,
yeah.
there's no. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, and I already hear some people saying, well, my state, like Nevada, let's use, has passed laws where you can be the trustee of your irrevocable
Well,
trust.
but
Okay, but
we're not
that
talking
may
about
be true, but those are new laws.
charities and things like this. You're not in this. You're not being taught to do a charitable trust to take care of. Put money aside to take care of this beautiful land that you don't want to be built on. Make it a trust land. Trust
Yeah,
property, and you assign someone to take care of that. Meanwhile, you're taking care of. That's not what you're trying
no,
to defraud. You're
yeah,
trying to do things that are not charitable. So
yeah,
don't use those kinds of rules that apply to things that aren't for your benefit.
yeah. a state like Nevada, they have passed a
I
law where
mean,
you can be the trustee of your irrevocable trust, but that will not pass what's called the control test. And if you
right.
can't pass the control test, which not only applies for taxes but also asset protection, if you're in control of the asset you say you don't own in an irrevocable trust, but you still control it, I'm sorry, that's not
Yeah,
lawsuit proof, people.
and well, and it's if it's not administratable, therefore, there's another test too. I don't remember what it's
Yeah.
called, but if it's not considered, if your trust is not considered a U.S. person, remember that's what you're doing. You're making a person.
Yep.
If your trust is not considered a U.S. person, I'm gonna go over this in my show because I people need a good lesson on this. Then it can't be administered. Well, then it can administer. It can't be administered privately if it can't be administered publicly. If it can't
Yep.
fit into the probate tests, the court tests, well, then it cannot be done privately. Or if it is and it goes under the radar, it's very challengeable ultimately, in the future, which is again why you don't want a sham trust because
Yeah.
it's treated as non-existent
Exactly.
if
They
it's
will
not administered.
disregard the trust,
Right.
which I showed you guys in my expose on art of passing the buck. Okay.
Hmm.
They failed the control test we're talking about. So yeah, I mean, don't because a lot of these trust gurus they say, well, you set up an irrevocable trust and now you don't have to pay taxes anymore, right? So, anyways, I talked about that in length. We won't. We're talking about Alphonse right now. So,
Not, and there's a difference between not paying taxes now and paying them later.
yeah,
It's not a get out of tax free card. It's just
no,
that you're rearranging things so you're not. Yeah, it's
yeah, and the real smart people, uh, they don't have things owned directly by an irrevocable trust. Anyways, I have a particular way of setting things up the way I do
yeah,
for that reason, but
absolutely.
yeah, because otherwise, yeah, you're you're not going to pass that control test, folks. All right, so you better know what you're doing on that stuff. In number three, I'm looking at 28 USC. This is the judge talking, section 1341. This is from the transcript.
And why
District
is he
again.
looking at that? Because he's a federal frickin' court.
Exactly. I read it before the district court shall not enjoin, suspend, or restrain the assessment, levy, or collection of any tax under state law where a plain, speedy, and efficient remedy may be had in the course of such state. So I want the third thing to be briefed as I want to know which specifically what is the plain, speedy, and efficient remedy that may be had under state law. I want to know specifically the statutes and how it works. Because yeah, this is where Alphonse was trying to say, um, the county they didn't let me get a plain, speedy, and efficient remedy in their lawsuit against him.
And this is actually, I mean, this is a seems to be a good judge, and I don't say that lightly
I
because
know.
he does actually seem to be trying to
Yeah,
help.
he
There are
is.
judges that kind of they see idiots and criminals and liars all day. So when
Yeah,
someone does come along and is trying to, they're actually rooting for you, but you never have the right information.
yeah,
So, and they try to help you
they
sometimes.
do. And if you read this transcript, you can see where he's trying to ask Alphonse
Yeah,
the
but
right
if you
questions.
walk in there with a religious belief and you will not budge on that belief, well, then you're gonna lose.
Yeah.
You're not listening to the very guy who's gonna make the decision and trying to help you sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, not always.
And you read this transcript. I mean, Alphonse interrupts the judge over and over. I mean, I can't imagine being the judge having this amount of
And
patience.
this lack of respect for the very thing that you're participating in, it's
Yeah.
horrible, and you're not gonna get any points that way. This is why I keep telling people, man, when you get pulled over by police, just cooperate, be nice. They get assholes all the time trying to go against them and
Yeah.
argue the law when they're not lawyers or judges. Do not do that. And this is another example is I think that we can take out of this is that you don't argue the tax before you pay it. You argue it
Yep.
after you pay it. Any fee or anything, you don't argue it. You can only have a remedy, as they say, if you've already committed the action. So don't protest the tax by not paying it. You can protest it after you pay it, which would be the smart thing to do, and the actually reasonable legal thing. You're actually then in good faith according to the court,
Mm,
which is way more important than the protest itself. Now the protest
right.
can happen after you pay, but not before. I mean,
Yeah.
now
And
you're
this is
just
what the
breaking the
judge
law.
says. I think I read you have to pay the tax first and
Nope.
then you challenge it.
There you go.
And that he's getting this from the IRS, which is definitely true. If you read tax court cases, this is definitely true.
What's true with anything?
Yeah, you're right. I know that's the way it works with the IRS. If you want to challenge the tax that you've mailed to the government, you've got to pay it first then. Alfonso, when the thieves got the gun on you, give them the money and you worry about it later. Judge, yes, it's the same with the federal tax law too.
Right? Because I mean, again, you're in a military executive rule. So, yes, I mean, acknowledgement of what you just said is true. It is perfectly legal. Yes,
Yep.
they have the gun. They are saying, give me the money. You give it to them because you've done some action that requires you to pay it. Now, again, I'm not saying this is good. I'm not supporting this system. I hate
Right.
it.
Right.
I've been against it my whole life, and it's affected my life thusly. I'm
Yeah.
just saying there's got to be a
Exactly.
point where you wise up to it, and you quit denying, like I said, you quit quit ignoring the tattoo on your freaking arm in a German prison camp. You are a prisoner, and I'm not. I don't know how to. And you are under an executive authority, a military rule. The only reason that martial law is not in place is because we haven't actually fought against it. We cooperate. Now, if you've got if you suddenly wake up the entire population, then you might be able to change things, but you're not going to do that. They're more interested in getting transhumanism than they are in any kind of law. They're more interested
Right.
in being a global citizen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So here Alfonso says yes. Oh, so he does acknowledge it. Is this why he paid the property taxes recently?
Well, that just totally eliminated his argument.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Right.
you're right, you dumbass.
So speaking of which, I pulled up this case document of Alfonso's. Plaintiff also alleges that to avoid tax liens, his parents and later himself paid taxes on the property from 1977 to 2023 that totaled almost $190,000.
About 10 times what the house was actually purchased for.
He is seeking that amount be returned to him as real damages. Webster's
Real,
dictionary defines a
real.
taxpayer as one who pays a tax. Look at guys, remember? I'm not a taxpayer. How many times did he repeat that? To his telegram, to the courts. And
But
look
I
at
mean,
guys.
and to your point, like he's lying to people. He's
Yeah.
lying to he's outright paying taxes and saying I'm not a taxpayer.
Right.
That
Right
alone
here. I am not a
should
taxpayer.
make you right now you should be clicking exit or cancel or whatever it is. You cannot follow someone like this.
Right.
Especially you, Mr. Graves, doctor.
Back to Steve Emerson. Because remember, this is where Alphonse is getting all his tax protesting information from. Steve Emerson not only tells you how to stop paying property taxes, but he also has the remedy supposedly on how to stop paying federal income taxes. So what he does is he tells you to file this tax court petition to tax court. Look at this, read this. This is Steve Emerson's sample document, okay? And it looks all official, right, when you look at it. Comes now petitioner Harry O'Donnell, who's just a made-up character, right? As one of the sovereign people of the Union State of California, claiming all rights known and unknown, and waiving none hereinafter. Referred to as petitioner seeking assistance from this court to protect petitioner's rights and interests in the above case captions. So this is at the point, guys, where you haven't paid taxes, the IRS is auditing you now, you're in tax court, right?
Well, let's also just look at the history of California. It became 1850, and that was followed after the Spanish explorers already were there. Many Native Americans died from foreign diseases, and finally, in the 19th century, there was a genocide by the United States government and private citizens, which is known as the California Genocide. So now we have this honorable California that exists now as a so-called state, right? A people.
Yeah.
But what was California before that? It was part of one of the, in other words, when a state becomes a state, it's first a federal territory. So it was conquered or purchased, right, by that particular, whatever it was, California, I can't remember which one it was, right? So it's already a federal territory. Then the people that lived there petitioned the federal government to become a state. And it's a state when Congress says, okay, it's a state. It has a constitution that agrees to all that the federal government and the constitution is law of the land, supreme law of the land, right? Meaning due process. And then the president signs it into existence as a state. Where does the state actually exist? Exist in Washington, D.C. There is no real state. There is no real people. There is no real Americans. Remember, a nation or a people is a spiritual bond that you have to fight for to keep. That was given up. It was a territory of the United States before it was ever a state. A state only exists as long as the government allows it to exist. I mean, again, all
Right.
these are complete and utter fallacies. And the last thing that the federal government said to all the states after the Civil War was, if you get out of line, we're going to come back in and beat the crap out of you and take back what you ceded.
Yeah.
Which is, again, that's why they had all the states in their constitution. It says very clearly that we give up our public lands to the federal government. California is 34% of the land in California is federally ceded. You cannot secede as California because you'd be taking federal lands, federal territory. That is what the international law recognizes as what makes a state, is to have the territory. So again, everybody that lives in California is a United States citizen.
Right.
Come on! How much more obvious does it get?
Yeah.
These are all fallacies of the Patriot tax protest movement. So,
Right. So Steve says, just stop paying taxes, stop filing. You do that, now you're in tax court. Now after that all happens, now Steve says, this is what you do. You file the petition to the tax court. Well, this is someone in Alphonse's Telegram group following this advice from Steve Everson, which Alphonse promotes. This is someone saying, I'm working on my reply to the answer I received from the Steve Everson tax court petition I filed earlier this year. I know Alphonse has said I'll need to sue the IRS in the state court to win. But for now, I still need to follow through on tax court. In the answer, they basically say the same thing over and over. What do I say to all these, quote, denies on the ground, or she probably meant denied, probably typo, denied on the ground that there are no material allegations of fact that require an answer pursuant to tax court rule 36B, end quote. And we'll look at this.
Did she bother to read tax court rule 36B?
Well, also to the part where they say my position is frivolous, groundless, and may require a fine up to $25,000.
This is what we're trying to avoid for you people, man.
Who the hell puts a fire emoji on that, by the way? I feel bad for this lady. I'm not making fun of her at all.
No, and that's what we're trying to get across. I mean, we can have fun while doing it, but at the same time, yeah, we care about these people. We don't want you to be a victim of this, especially some a-hole who's telling you. I mean, she's actually, instead of going to the law or to an attorney or to someone who's a professional, she's going to this guy. Why do we do that over and over? Why do we return to the so-called truth movement where you get no facts, no actual real information, and you're sold a bill of goods? I don't get it.
Well, Clint, I got all the secrets. Yeah, Steve Everson's tax essay.
Right. Well, so what? I mean, I can't wait to hear his response. Well, I mean, that's the.
Okay, so this is a case that Emerson cites or actually, no, this is the case where someone tried to do exactly what Steve Everson says, the petition. And you guys can look up that case. Finally, Collard makes allegations to the fact that the commissioner and the tax court are involved in criminal conspiracy and scam to defraud taxpayers. Does that sound familiar, guys? Oh, and look what happened. He loses in the amount of $8,000. The court agrees with the commissioner. Of course they are. This is tax court people.
I'd say he got lucky that
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't get jail time. I mean, this is felony.
So let's go back to this petition. Tax court rule 34B. This is what this whole thing is about, right? Supposedly. Let's pull up this 34B. Content of petition, deficiency, or liability actions. The petition and deficiency or liability action shall contain, and it lists all of this. Look at this. Clear and concise assignments of each and every error which the petition alleges to have been committed by the commissioner. And it goes on. Clear and concise lettered statements of the facts of which petitioner based their assignments of error, except with respect to those assignments of error as to which the burden of proof is on the commissioner.
It's not on the commissioner. It's on the commissioner in his person, private person. That's another
Right. Now, Clint, you shared this with me as well earlier, talking about allegiance.
Well, I mean, what we're really talking about is sovereignty, that I'm a sovereign citizen or that I'm just a sovereign, right? But,
yeah.
I mean, allegiance is an ancient concept that has never gone away. You pledge it to the flag, you do all these things, and being a citizen, remember the definition of national, which every citizen is.
Yep.
You're in allegiance to the government, the nation. I mean, I don't know.
And not state national. I don't know. Some people are thinking of that. We've already covered that, Clint and I.
That is a term made up by what's her name. It doesn't.
Anna von Reitz.
And she admits it.
Yeah. So yeah, guys. Oh wait, this is actually the case that we talked about earlier. Wallace and Harmstead. Remember that? Mm-hmm. I love how they all came full circle. Speaking of which, this is almost the end, guys. Okay.
Well, let's read that because to understand that you're not sovereign.
Right.
Okay. The tie or ligament which binds a subject or citizen to the king or government in return for that protection. Remember, with protection comes subjection. The king or government bestows upon the citizen, subject or citizen. It consists in a true and faithful obedience of the subject due to his sovereign. What is citizenship? It is subjection.
Yeah.
Subject due to his sovereign. Where do you think persons come from? God? And is a comparatively modern corruption of legionitia, which is derived from this meaning absolute or unqualified. It's signified original liege fealty, absolute and unqualified fealty. In the United States, it is a political obligation depending not on ownership of land, but on the enjoyment of the protection of government. Well, I mean, what do you think a title is? What do you think everything you get as a legal person, citizen, is a it is an enjoyment
water,
of
sewage,
some protection. Right? Well, yeah, but also, I mean, even consumer protections, all these civil rights and things that
civil rights.
Civil rights is a protection of government, binds the citizen to the observance of all laws and of his own sovereign. So you're not sovereign. Remember, there's only one sovereign, and that is the God of the universe, the God that is the universe, right? You don't, when you pledge allegiance to a false God, a magistrate, a judge, a president, a king, a constitution, etc., then you have given up all God-given inherent rights, and you have taken upon yourself the protection of government, not God. You cannot claim God-given rights in a situation where you've abandoned God. It's that simple. And that is not just religious. That is the way the law works. It's the way the maxims of law tell you, right? So this is not religion. This is, remember, the Bible came from the common law of England. It is the foundation. It still says that in some states. I mean, it's for God's sake.
I think Pennsylvania is one of those, yeah.
Grow the hell up and understand what you've done to get yourself into this situation, because you're not going to get out of it until you admit this. At
Right.
least admit that you've done this, right? That
Right.
this is how it works. So you can't claim sovereignty, you can't claim rights, you can't claim anything that doesn't come from government, because persons are properties of government.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Sovereign citizen. My God.
Well, and like I said earlier, in his early days of online content,
Oh, he
Alphonse,
still believes it.
yeah, he said
He just
citizens are
realized
sovereign.
he just realized that that's an oxymoron is all,
Right.
but he still believes it.
Right. Right. So, what is Alphonse doing with all this? I mean, what is the purpose, okay, of making this Telegram group, keeping everyone updated on this case, which he doesn't show everybody everything. But, anyways, what is he all doing this for? Why is he appearing on podcasts?
It's probably the same thing that an Amway salesman will. He wants you to buy product.
Well, here he says this is the pinned message when you join his Telegram, or at least it was. There are three resources I recommend for people that are serious about this stuff. That to me are must haves. Jurisdictionary course, $250. This course is really a requirement to do this stuff. Else, you're going to be lost as to how to defend yourself and how to sue people.
And that is a great endorsement. However, if I was the guy who wrote the jurisdictionary course, which we've talked about, Mr. Graves, Dr.
Yeah.
Graves, I would not. Okay. Here's the legit. Here's the test, right? The what do you call it? The litmus test. If Dr. Graves were to suddenly have a conscience or realize this is fraud, and he comes out against this guy, would he still recommend this course?
Good
Because
question.
anybody comes out against him, what does he do? He says you're a little Asian twit that can't be right.
Oh,
You're too young and too stupid and too whatever, right? It's always an ad hominem and it's always
right.
attack the messenger. So what happens if Dr. Graves suddenly says, "Well, this guy's full of crap," and we've just proved it. You can't go against what we've said. You can't go against the court record.
Right.
What's going to happen? I mean, that's probably my most right now. That's what I'm most curious about.
Because really, this is the underpinning of Alphonse's whole platform is
I
this
don't want
course.
this guy promoting my book to justify his bull,
Oh,
his fraud.
well, trust me, he completely dismisses the idea of how U.S. persons are strawmen.
The legally defined legal term straw man. Oh, okay,
Right.
great.
Right. It's hard to talk to people that have not taken the course because it's like having to always start from ground zero to communicate because it's one question after another. What is this? How do I do this? How do you file that, etc. So this is a little affiliate link. Notice that refer code. That's meaning he gets paid when you sign up.
I never liked that title, "How to Win in Court," because again, there is no winning. It's not a win or lose. You might get something out of it, but you're not winning.
Yeah, it's a gamble. You go to court, it's a gamble. Okay. The two DVDs. This is the second resource he recommends. The two DVDs that Steve Emerson, the guy we just talked about, $500 for DVDs? Are you kidding me?
My goodness.
It's like Art of Passing the Book, charging $400 for a book back in the day. I've nicknamed, which isn't, it's in their cases. I'm not making that up, guys. I've nicknamed these the quote keys to the kingdom, end quote. Oh, because the amount of information and the value of that information is staggering. Too much to list, but rest assured.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait, I just noticed something.
What's that?
The website.
Yeah.
Look at the end of the website. Reference code. That's his code, isn't it? So he's getting part of that 250.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah, that's his. That's his affiliate link.
See, all this stuff is so foreign to me because I don't participate in it. I don't sell anything, so I don't, and I certainly don't do this. So it's kind of. I guess I'm an old fogey because I refuse to participate in the affiliate shit.
You should be very cautious of what is an affiliate link Because a lot of people, when they click on these links, they don't even know most of the time.
No, no. I always copy the link and read it before I do anything because it
Yeah.
could be spam. It could be, sometimes it's Microsoft, but it has a word before Microsoft,
Yeah.
which is perfectly legal, and it goes to a porn site or something. So,
uh, so yeah, because the amount of information and the value of that information is staggering, too much to list. But rest assured, you're not going to be able to get through it all, which is what you should be trying to do anyway. You just want to know that you have and where you can find it. That doesn't make sense. When you need it, that's more important than anything. I mean, this is the definition of a run on sentence. Just knowing where something is and if you ever need it. Neither Steve or I sell these, nor do we profit from them.
what?
How did so who's selling it?
What? What? It just said $500.
If it's Steve's DVDs that he says right here, who is making money from this? We
And,
only
and,
make them
and where?
available.
Why is it we? Who's we? I mean, we
Right.
want everyone. What? We make them available, but for $500. But you
That's
just said
yeah.
what?
Yeah. We
Where's
only
the
make them
link?
available to you because we want everyone to be able to sue these people and make them go away and pay you for your aggravation.
Where are they going to go? Go away? Uh,
Send me a private message for info on how to get them.
and
So
where's the
what he
five
also
hundred
offers is
dollars?
paid consultations.
Well, where's the website? Oh, you can't get. There's no website. So is he getting the $500 and then
I,
not give and then sharing it with Steve, or is Steve getting it and he's sharing it with him?
I don't
That's a
care.
lie.
Right.
Why would you say it's $500 and then say we don't profit from them?
Well,
How is $500 for a couple DVDs not a for-profit, commerce? I don't
some for
understand.
somebody, it's got to be somebody who's getting that
Wow.
$500. Well, my question is, Clint, let's say I do want to buy these. Well, don't you want to know what's on the DVDs before you buy it? Well, am I just going to blindly buy these Keys of the Kingdom?
People do.
The hell?
I mean, if it weren't for that, what you just described, they wouldn't sell anything.
God. Okay. This is someone in his chat. Jonah, I need to understand something. I've invested over $750 for Jurisdictionary and the Keys to the Kingdom databases. So, needless to say, I'm very much invested with learning this stuff. That being said, reading Jurisdictionary and listening to Alphonse, I keep getting conflicting info regarding jurisdiction.
That's hilarious. Oh, imagine that.
Alphonse said, never let them call you a plaintiff or defendant. But when shown to write in a request for admissions, a request for discovery, motions, etc., it always has plaintiff defendant. Are those always included with these docs? I need to go on the offensive in my case, and I need to know what to do without lowering my status.
You're already in the lowest possible status you can be. That's what citizenship is. It's called a denizen. Look up denizen. You'll
Yeah.
understand what a citizen is, defined as a citizen. Denizen is what you actually are. So you're already at the lowest. Remember, 14th Amendment citizenship, as they call it, was given to the slaves when they were made citizens and then
Yeah.
offered to everybody else through the birth certificate. You are at the lowest possible status you can be in personhood. I'm sorry.
Ah, man. All right. So, yeah, that's what I had to show you guys.
Well, it was supposed to be a little short presentation, but man, as we kept looking into it, it's just amazing when you see.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to do, Brad. I mean, I've been trying to correct people's understanding of things for years, and like I said, I'm the bad guy for some. When
Right.
someone tells you the truth and you think they're the bad guy, then you know something is wrong. And I wish people would wake up from this. This whole it's always been this way. Like I said, this is just the tax protest movement. When I joined up in We are change and all these. It all revolved around commerce. It all revolved
Yeah.
around tax protestation. But you don't really realize at the moment because it's so many different things mixed in. But ultimately, it's just the old tax protest movement being revamped and resold by, unfortunately, by people like me in their early stages who have no true due diligence or understanding of what it is that they're promoting. And I promoted this stuff because on the surface, without looking, it makes sense. Just like when I shared quotes that were sent to me and then later found out they were fraudulent or doctored or made up or added to, right? And then later you say, oh, damn it, it happened again. Right? I made a fool. That's why I stopped taking people's emails and just, oh, there's a great quote. Let me copy that. They're, man, often they're either out of context or they're doctored. They're made up
Yep.
or they're whatever. So I don't know what to say at this point because then the gurus, they keep parroting each other over and over throughout the years using the same defeated arguments. How do we stop this cycle? And here's a guy who just says, I just invested all this money and I'm getting absolutely conflicting statements on juris. Well, yeah, we just showed you why. If that guy continues to support these people, I mean, in my opinion, we're in a hopeless situation. If after
Yeah.
this video, and I would really recommend that anybody in this group start forward this, you know, let
Hmm.
people know they're being defrauded in any of these groups. Crow on all these stations that support all these guys, and they're making affiliate money from you buying fraudulent information. I've been trying to expose this for over a decade. And
Yeah.
again, this is why I'm so unpopular. But I shouldn't be. I should be. We should be at the top. I mean, we should be celebrated for doing all this work for people so that they don't have to. And you're
Right.
welcome to verify anything we've covered here. That's the
Yeah.
thing. We've done it for you, but you're welcome to look it up yourself and verify. We don't doctor anything. We don't say anything is what it isn't. And
Right.
I mean, that's the reason that I'm hooked up with Brandon because there's no one else to hook up with. They're all fraud. I mean, it's like, God, come on. How is it that it's come to this? I just don't get it. I really don't.
You know, I try to help people that are stuck in these patterns, let's call it.
Hmm.
But after all the nastiest, including from Mr. Alphonse himself, throwing constant ad hominems towards me, I'm not going to try to help the guy anymore.
Or,
I
or the people who support his, and do it to you as well on his
right.
behalf. I mean, they should be apologizing, really.
Yeah. He's
Um,
well aware of my work. He's watched it. I know he left a comment on my YouTube video.
I'm sure it was not pleasant,
Well, no, I won't get into it because it
and
would
nothing,
break.
nothing, nothing to do with the source material,
I
right?
can't show you the comments he left talking about me in YouTube comments and his own Telegram chat because it actually break YouTube's terms of service.
That's funny.
So
Uh,
yeah, I'm not going to play
yeah.
into that. So anyways, this is my last offer to help Alphonse because look, man, I get it. You said for a while you weren't tax better. Now you pay the taxes because you listen to the judge. So
It's
yeah,
it's okay to be wrong. It really
right,
is because if
right,
you're never wrong, you'll never discover what is right. I mean, you have to at some point say, okay, I've been wrong, and I've
yeah,
wronged people. I've taken I've this guy's extorting people. He's exacting people, right? He's charging way too much for these things, and I'm I there has to be at some point where like I've said it before that eventually as we progress in this ultimate lie, this ultimate fiction, this ultimate, the grand delusion of this legal stuff and everything that is opposed to nature. Um, there has to be a point. I mean, there will be a point where we're going to have to actually start. I mean, if there is no justice, if there is no equity, there's no justice, right? There's no way to get justice. There's no way to get equity. Well, then that leaves only one thing, which is that you're going to have to start. We are the ones that are going to have to start taking, getting justice, and that means they're going to call it vigilantism. They're going to call it all these people that are killing people, all these immigrants that are killing people, all these things that are happening. There has to be a point where people start taking the law into their own hands because the powers that be are not. That is not a declaration. That is not an advice. That is just if I'm looking at what's happening, that's the only thing left that can happen.
Well,
And when that starts happening,
yeah,
it's going to be a losing proposition, and they're going to make us the enemies for trying to get justice. Right now, it looks exactly how Germany did before
mm,
there was that declaration of a war emergency, right? Hitler, Article 48, suspending the Constitution, right? Talking about Trump becoming a dictator. Well, all presidents are dictators. I'm sorry to tell you, they all have suspended the Constitution. They've all declared emergencies or continued the declaration. You've already got a dictatorship. It's called the United States. I don't know why you don't understand that, but by all means, go vote. Go vote for that which you don't actually elect. Okay, fine. I don't know
yeah,
what to say. I mean, you're in exactly what the Bible describes, this massive grand delusion that you can't come out of unless you start admitting these things, truths that are
right.
they're not self-evident. I will say that because this is we're
Mm,
dealing with legal things, can't be self-evident, but they're pretty damn obvious when you just do a little bit of research.
yeah. So, look, this case isn't over. Well, at least Alphonse doesn't think so. He's trying to appeal this. Um,
Who's left if he's already gone federal? Who does he appeal it to?
well,
Because no federal court's going to take it because this is a matter of the state.
on appeal from the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. So yeah, I'll just breeze through this real quick. Appeal was unable to locate a statutory process that authorizes the county of Delaware to impose an ad valorem tax on non-commercial. So he's still running with that, right? We've already disproved that. It's fair to say this is all his words, right? Appeal filed a civil rights complaint in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania.
But he goes to the wrong court. That's
Right.
hilarious. I mean, that's right there. It tells you don't listen to this guy.
Here he goes. This is a civil rights suit addressing unconstitutional misapplication. This is not a tax case.
But I say again, civil rights. That's not. This isn't a civil rights issue.
Right. It never
I
was.
mean, and then probably the judge said that too, right? He's applying rules that apply to the person to the rules that apply to real estate, essentially, and not.
Yeah, because the judge says, look, this is a tax case, right? He says again, this is not tax appealant, talking about himself, is not a taxpayer or non-taxpayer. That's what he says. Okay, so it goes on. He just says the same thing over and over. Non-taxpayer has no state law remedies. This is not a tax case. Appealant is not a taxpayer. Okay. I don't know how many times I can read the same thing over and over.
I got a question though. Just so an appellant is the party who appeals a lower court's judgment or order to a higher court. The appellant is dissatisfied with the outcome of the proceedings and seeks review by a higher court. But so I can understand saying that, but an appellant necessarily, because that guy just said in all cases they call you a defendant. If you were in a court and you were ruled against, you were the defendant and still are. Just because you become an appellant, which means you're appealing, that's all it means. I'm one who appeals. Like, it's
Right.
literally down here it says an appellant is one that appeals. Appeals from a judicial decision or decree. Well, you wouldn't get a decision or decree unless you were the defendant in the case, or possibly the one who's bringing the suit, right? But
Right.
the complainant, right? But yeah, this. I mean, even that. Well, that's why you are the defendant. You can't be in the case without being named the defendant. You're defending yourself.
Yeah.
Jesus.
No, exactly. Yeah, guys. So this is where this is at right now as of the 3rd of September. We'll see where this goes.
Well,
Trust me,
here's the other thing. I'm sorry to interrupt, but an appellate or a petitioner is generally the party who lost in the district court. Is he telling to be an appellant, you would have had to have lost as a defendant? I mean, okay, so I'm sorry. It's just
oh,
I just
good
hate
point.
people that I'm sorry. This just pisses me off, man.
Yeah,
That he's
right.
fraud.
So you can learn all the court procedure you want to from this course. Doesn't mean you're gonna understand what you're doing. Like Alphonse does. He just repeatedly files motion after motion like a machine without
And
actually
you're also going to go up against a master of civil procedure, which is the judge. And if he's
right.
not, he's going to have a whole team of attorneys
Yeah.
that are court clerks or employees of the court, right? I mean, all attorneys are employees of the court technically.
Mhm.
So yeah, you're not going to win against a court by knowing court procedure. Now, how to apply it, maybe how to reference other things outside of court procedure, because court procedure isn't the end all being. I mean, there's what
Right.
about U.S. code? What about state code? What about county code? Municipal code? What about everything? Is it uniform? Is it this? Is it that? There's so many considerations that go into it, not just the rules of civil procedure, just the rules of the court itself, not even the law or the subject matter. I
I was
mean,
just gonna say the subject matter, which he completely disregards or
I
confuses.
apparently doesn't know what that means. So again, we're sitting here saying we're not defaming the guy, and
No.
no. But when you have a fraud in front of you, and it's a proven fact that he's defrauding people, we've just proved it to you. You have to be able to you have to be able to say exactly that. Saying he's defrauding people is not defamation, it is the facts. It is what he does, and he has shown to be a taxpayer when he says he's not. He's just a liar, right? That's not defamation, that is a proven fact. I don't know what to say. I mean, how do you
Right. There's nothing else to say.
I know we've shown you the facts. If you continue to hate the messenger and kill the messenger, then I don't know what you deserve what you get.
Yeah.
Right?
Look,
Really? I mean, isn't that what we deserve what we get for supporting a fraud?
yeah. I mean, I really don't feel the need to make any more videos exposing gurus
Oh, well,
because
yeah, and they're going to come after you because that's all they can do.
yeah.
Oh, did you hear what that young twit did again? Well, how about me? I'm 52. Am I a young twit? I'm a well-known researcher. You think I'm a fraud? You think I'm? Go ahead, challenge me. I'll be glad to be challenged.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, guys, don't I'm not selling anything to you guys watching this. Do not try to contact me. I mean, I am getting a look, I'm gonna be a ghost moving forward when it comes to these kind of topics. So
And I'll verify that the reason I mean, he doesn't want to just come out right and say it. Brandon doesn't, but trying to help people from the truth movement that he really got into, I suppose, because of me, right? Is an impossible task because there is a political religion, a patriotic religion, a mythology that is attached to everybody that comes to Brandon, and the frustration that comes from having to answer all these questions that are coming from these frauds that we're exposing, all the patriot mythology, everything that people believe already, and that when you answer them with code or law or court cases, the actual precedent, they challenge you, and you have to spend even more time saying, no, this isn't true. What you've been told out there from the tax protest movement is not true. Every case loses. Every tax protester is a loser. All right, they're not winners as they claim. They're why would Brandon want to go into any kind of business with anybody who comes to him challenging him because the guru that they follow says, this? I wouldn't want to do it either. I don't blame you for not wanting to participate. I don't even want to. I mean, I feel an obligation, like I said, just because I was in that position where I was believing some of this stuff, and I don't
yeah.
want anybody, I don't want to be responsible for anybody that is a victim of it.
Yeah, yeah. So, Clint and I, we are not the new guru,
No.
right? Uh, we're not making up anything. We're just finding the sources and showing it to you guys. So it's not like we have unique takes on stuff. It is,
And I'll bet you at this moment he's telling his group, "Well, that case is still in. It's still going. It's
right.
ongoing. I can't talk about it." Yeah, no, actually, it's pretty much done. All his arguments have been disproven. He's paid the tax. He is a taxpayer. Everything he says is a lie, and we just showed it. So if you
Yeah.
continue to follow him, then, like I said, I can only say that you deserve what you're going to get. And, I suppose that's probably what the Bible says too. You know? Yeah.
Yeah. And, I'm not saying this is all Alphonse, but a lot of the other gurus, they try to get you in by quoting the Bible, sounding like they're a Christian or something. And,
Hmm.
oh, they think just like you, they're relatable. But no, no, no. Those people are using scripture and all this stuff to promote, to market.
When I use references in the Bible, I'm literally quoting half the time the very principles of law that would actually protect you if you weren't involved in all this fraud. So they come from the Bible. That's why it's considered part of the common law, the foundation of common law. I don't use the Bible for an appeal to get you to buy a product or something. No, I'm using it because it is the foundation of law. It is a book
Yeah.
of law in and of itself that if you followed it, you wouldn't be in all of these problems. You wouldn't be using legal things. So, there is no legal law without the Bible law. They are 100% opposed to that. That's why the Pope created the secular and the spiritual jurisdiction, as they call it, right? I don't know what to tell you guys. If you don't understand that, you don't know anything about the law. You
Yeah.
don't know. That's the funny part is like if you really are against the Bible, even though you use it in court, you really gotta reconsider here. But as I did, I was a hater of the Bible too because I didn't understand it. Everybody hates what they don't understand, and the problem with these gurus is that they ensure that you don't understand. That's how they sell product is your ignorance. You're supporting your ignorance by giving you false information, so that you're still ignorant of the real thing or the legal thing that you're trying to understand. Instead, you understand the mythology. And so when they come to someone like Brandon or myself, and we have to spend so much time trying to explain, no, this is not, this is fraud, or this is false, or this, why would we want to deal with people if that's why we make this kind of video is you shouldn't there's nothing left for us to, you can either verify it yourself with all the links we've provided, you can look up the definitions yourself, you can do all these things by yourself. And that's what you should do because that's the only way you're going to learn. It's the only way I started learning is when I stopped listening to gurus, the truth movement, the tax protest movement, and started doing the research myself. And that's why I labeled myself. I'm a primary researcher. I do not listen to people. I don't listen to Patriot Radio. I don't listen to the truth. I do my own. And then
Yeah.
I put it out there. I give you the sources. I give you everything to even put me in the same category as these people, or Brandon for that matter, do not put us in the same category as these guys. We are opposed to them
Yeah.
because they are harming people. Okay?
Yep.
So, yeah. Anyway,
Well,
I
guys, I think that concludes it. And yeah, this was a good one. Thanks for coming on, Clint.
yeah,
It was long overdue.
we
So
had this is like I said, this is the climax. This is the this is the final nail in the coffin of all of these guys because it's all the same story. We've shown that.
right.
You've shown it especially, and I'm proud of you being the little twit that you are, the young little guy that you are, that you have completely torn a new asshole in the
Yeah.
Patriot.
So I think that wraps it up. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you in the next one.
Take it easy.